The attempted assassination of Donald Trump came right as we were doing the last plenary at the Networks Nation 2024 convention. And I know if anyone there had known about it, based on what we were talking about and narrative, etc., we would have been on point with the narrative to ensure that while we always make sure to say we don't support violence, we also not allow the violence that is generally induced by the right to somehow change that narrative of positivity and of making effective change to the working class, for it to somehow get involved and try to make us mitigate what we must not. In other words, try to make us not forcefully deliver our message. And you know what? The first text that I received was one that said, "Oh my God, Egberto, do you believe the sympathy factor will cause Trump to win this election because of the attempted assassination?" To which I said no. Others called and said, "Do you think this was staged?" I also said no. But was it an opportune thing that happened to the Trump campaign? I don't want to sound callous. Let me be frank. I would never want something to happen to any politician, but not only to any politician, but to any human being, any American citizen, any citizen of the world. I don't want shot or assassinated. Oh, we are raising hell because an attempt on Trump's life was made. But every day, the attempts on the lives of hundreds of Americans are made. All of the times. And no enforcement of gun laws or no rethinking of gun laws or no rethinking of social programs that would mitigate the killing, the murder of people is really thought about. But it comes close to home in the case of Donald Trump. And the world must change, and we must concentrate on slowing down the rhetoric. Yeah, we should concentrate on slowing down the rhetoric on the right, because that's the rhetoric, that is the rhetoric of violence. Ours is a rhetoric of truth, the rhetoric that says we need to provide health care, we need to provide gun control, we need to provide things that maintain life, we need to provide things, and we also need to provide freedom. We need to support the maintenance of freedom. Making those statements, Trump is an existential danger to America's freedom. That's not a conjecture, that's a statement of fact. We prove it by his own testimony, by his own words, by his own past. So we have to maintain those realities, and trying to acquiesce to what the media would like to see as some sort of a false equivalence will not do the American people any good. And you know, for once, I usually consider Martha Raddatz very much supporting of the Republican rhetoric, allowing it to go further than it did. And when you see that in this short piece here, she actually says and points out and pretty much makes it clear, yeah, Donald Trump is the one that actually promotes violence. Listen to these words. I want you to listen to this and we'll take it on the other side.
Anchor Martha Raddatz. And Martha, I know you've traveled around the country talking to voters in our deeply divided nation right now. In some ways, this is a horrific symptom of the underlying division in this country.
It certainly is, George, and I'm sure that will probably continue. We saw President Trump raise his right hand, as John just described, and we've seen those pictures. But we could also see him say what I believe was fight. That was his first instinct. And this is a country divided. This is a country, we saw the violence yesterday, the horrific violence yesterday. And we've seen it in places. And we've also seen this morning, we've heard President Trump say he wants the country to come together, to be united. But others are directly pointing the finger at President Biden with, of course, no evidence that he incited this or or had anything to do with this assassination attempt. We heard J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance, who is one of the leading picks for vice president, in a tweet say, this is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. Again, there is no evidence of that. We do not know the motive of that shooter at this point. And others also, Vivek Ramaswamy saying President Biden's ritual condemnation of political violence are insufficient. No amount of verbiage today changes the toxic national climate that led to this tragedy, saying that Trump's safety is nothing short of an act of God. And I think you'll see a lot of supporters thinking the same thing. And also, George, we have to point out, no matter who the shooter, what the shooter's motives were, no matter who the shooter is, you are going to hear conspiracy theories going forward.
No question about that. But as you point out those statements from J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy, of course, President Trump and his supporters have contributed to this violent rhetoric as well.
Well, absolutely, George. We were just looking back this morning at some of the things that former President Trump has said. He warned last March of potential death and destruction if he were charged by the Manhattan District Attorney. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Trump in January warned of bedlam in the country if the criminal charges against him succeeded. And of course, in March, he said, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That will be the least of it. He said he was partly joking and that was taken out of context. But those are indeed his words. And you have heard it from supporters as well.
Now, folks, this is no joke. Democrats cannot acquiesce to this false equivalence that many are asking them to do. Oh, let's reduce, including Biden. Biden goes on TV and says to reduce the rhetoric on both sides. The rhetoric of violence is only on one side, bar none. The other side is simply telling the truth. And sometimes the truth sounds uncivil because the truth of which we speak is in effect uncivil. And that is why it cannot stop. That is why we must continue to go out there and tell the truth to the American people. It's just the truth.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.